to leadership today. Emmanuel Sam is my name. I'd like to appreciate everyone for watching. It's been almost 2 months we've been out of touch with our viewers. Well, the reason has been the fact that we've been trying to adapt to the changes of the season. In the past 2 months, there's been a lot of upheavals globally. And so we've been trying to see how we could adapt by inspiration to ensure that we are able to keep us abreast of current realities, facts, and wisdom, which will help us to be able to attain our aspirations within the context of our current dispensation or dispensational maps and blueprints. All right. Today, I'd just like to talk a little bit about leadership and structures. Leadership and structures. When we hear the word structures, our first frame of reference always relates to the physical infrastructures and all of that. Well, that's partially true. Structures in the original sense are first of all abstract. Matter of fact, structures first of all come from subatomic dimensions, and then they begin to take form as matter congeals, and that's where physical structures come into being. And so when we talk about leadership and structures, we are talking about how leaders are going to be able to first of all check and ascertain the nature of the future of our decisions and what we desire to see, but from first of all being able to effectively articulate the internal structures, internal nature of structure and structures. See, everything in life is about structures, from authority figures to the way systems are run. It's all about structures. As a matter of fact, structures are proofs of order. Without structure, there is no order in an environment. Without structure, there can be no order. Every organization that must thrive must have an effective managerial and leadership structure. Man, in a form, in a figure, is a compendium of several structures and systems coming together to form a whole structure. And without the skeletal structure, man becomes immobile. Man is immobilized. And so, several times, we look at things from the natural so much, but as leaders, for us to effectively understand how to navigate and journey through life, especially in seasons like this, where the wind of change is blowing so fast, several structural collapse taking place all at once, that which has been built on structures that have been built on perversion, manipulation, oppression, structures that have been founded on faulty paradigms of control and several ulterior motives. Nature is convulsing. Everything is being brought to light. The hidden things, multinational organizations, CEOs of multinational companies, all their clandestine agendas seem to be coming into limelight all of a sudden. And so the need to begin to defend oneself and to begin to defend the nocturnal operations of organization systems, structures, and even government of nations is becoming very obvious, and you begin to see that right now the wind of change is coming with so much turbulence. And so it behooves leaders therefore to be able to begin to chart the course for the next decade. It behooves leaders to begin to see how they can effectively, coordinate internal and external resources by wisdom and understanding and knowledge, such that the new systems and structures that are going to emerge at the climax of this, this turbulent wind of change that is blowing globally, that leaders will be able to help those who are coming up, the upcoming generations, to be able to see how we could build structures by light in order to help us be able to walk in the dimensions that are necessary for our advancement corporately and individually. And so I'd like to say, first of all, I want to say that, every structure, comes from a decision. But at the foundation of decisions are desires. While desires are the nursery for the formulation and nurturing of abstract structures, decisions are the conduits by which these structures are transmitted into the natural realm. As a matter of fact, decisions are components or channels by which the various currencies of life, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, these are all currencies of life. Decisions are channels by which the various currencies of life, are being transacted into the natural realm. Life is abstract, life is spiritual, life is not ruled from the natural realm. And so the quality of our decisions determine the outcome of our life in the natural, because decisions capture the components of life from the abstract realm into the natural realm. This is so important because we are in a season where, there has to be knowledge and wisdom upgrade. We cannot function in this current dispensation according to that which we have known in the past. Our educational curriculums may not be obsolete, but need to be upgraded. Wisdom is being unlocked in new dimensions. And unless we are willing to upgrade in our understanding of the concept and the nature of life, such that it suits, the parameters of the templates and the structure of the cosmos for this dispensation, we'll be functioning out of order. And when there is disorderliness or chaos, darkness rules. In other words, ignorance is going to be on the rampage so much in this decade that people must be very intentional about going after relevant knowledge. I'll take that again. Ignorance is going to be on the rampage, such that people must be really intentional about going after relevant knowledge. Knowledge alone would not just suffice. There must be relevant knowledge. And this knowledge, this wisdom, usually will be uncommon. In other words, it isn't something that we'll just cook up from our homes. It has to come by inspiration from the authentic source of wisdom and knowledge. As we glide through this season of change, we begin to realize that in the midst of the confusion, a lot of theories will begin to emerge. And as these theories emerge, we realize that more and more falsehood will be propagated. More and more falsehood according to the faulty desires of men who have not been able to discern truth from fictitious experimentations founded on baseless, orientations. This kind of, falsehood will be projected more and more in society. And so leaders must stand on the path of true north to begin to download genuine inspiration in order to help us individually and corporately within our organization, systems, structures, and nations function according to the blueprint for our dispensation. For every dispensation, there is a blueprint. It is custodied in wisdom. And so when wisdom begins to speak, calling us, into higher realms of function as leaders, it is only expedient that we heed the call and begin to flow immediately so that we don't go outside of the confines of our jurisdictions according to our preordination. there's going to be curriculum collapse. As we progress and get sensitive to the wisdom that is coming out by reason of the shakings in these times and seasons, we begin to realize that a lot of our curriculums in our educational systems are founded on falsehood. You cannot discern that by just reading in between the lines. You need to go deeper into discerning the motivations. For instance, management theories that have been founded on falsehood will begin to be exposed. You check it. Nations have been taught to be dependent on loans for survival, especially African nations. What we haven't realized is the fact that all of these were strategies to hinder us from actually discerning, discovering, activating, and maximizing our inherent individual and corporate potential. And so we see our continent ravaged by systems and global economies who propounded some of these theories which govern our educational and economic systems, and yet they are clandestinely operating with a wisdom which is meant to, in all ramifications, short-circuit our economic and social advancements. When you look at what is going on right now, with African nations clamoring for independence from colonial masters, and you see the subtle craftiness by which they are trying to bring about negotiations, peaceful negotiations, which will further keep our nations enslaved, then you understand why Africans cannot build multinational organizations where, the heads of these organizations are completely locals, with, foreigners taking on supervisory, regional, and other managerial roles outside of core directorship and the likes. Now, these structures by which our systems are founded, first of all, came from implants, knowledge implants that were retrogressive, captured in curriculums powered by our educational and economic systems. This has also affected our ability to have the right leaders. The other day, I saw a video from United Arab Emirates where a man was interviewed about his country, how Dubai came to be what it is today. And he said Dubai has no resources, that what Dubai has is effective quality leadership. Coincidentally, I don't know how, but the man said something about Nigeria. He said Nigeria cannot progress when it is founded on corruption. Well, the news media, international organizations talk about all of this corruption a lot. However, this isn't because they care about our growth. Matter of fact, I would say probably only 3 to 5% of multinational organizations that have big global names, them. Very few of them actually have our best interests at heart. All they do is try to project a false image while behind the scenes they enter into agreements with our political and economic leaders to further enslave our nations. I mean, we are in a continent where people don't want to work. And the reason isn't far-fetched. When the people have been enslaved for too long, the dignity of labor, the concept of dignity of labor is lost. And so people just want to make profitable living on the fast lane, which is impossible. Growth is a concept that is factored into the reality of life. And growth is progressive. It is precept upon precept. When people are not given to economic growth progressively and decide to go on the fast lane, crime is on the increase. as we see all over today. While I am glad by the fact that youths have arisen to take the streets, some are going into protesting, some are going into, some are going into prayers along the streets and everywhere, especially from my city of Calabar, Cross River State, Nigeria. In all of this, what is most important is, where are we changing to? Do we have a goal in mind? Do we really have a plan? Is there true, genuine, visionary leadership which can coordinate wisdom such that individual, corporate, institutional structures can come together to effectively harness the potential of people, as well as harness the potentials of territories, in order to bring about effective industrialization which will emancipate our lands and our nations from the scourge of poverty. I mean, this stink of slavery has so captured the minds of the average African youth that even those who are given to the Christian life, most of them have lost the concept of the dignity of labor. When a culture of impunity rules, the mental framework or the mental structure of its populace begins to depreciate. And these are some of the battles and the issues that we have to grapple with in this next decade. For Christians and Muslims, it isn't just about prayer. Responsibility taking has been replaced with the spirit of lawlessness. People want to be pitied. People want to get more emotional than reasonable. People throw away objectivity and truth and lean on temporal facts and falsehood. People throw away reason and take on, lopsided thinking. People don't want to look reality in the face and say we can take responsibility. This is because of the damaged internal structures which our curriculums have subtly imposed on us. We must come to this point where we tell ourselves the truth. We don't have mentors. By that I mean there are very few, probably 3 to 5%. Or let's say 5 to 95, a ratio of 5 to 95. If you have to talk about quality mentors who can disciple the next generation, the younger generation, my generation. And so we are saddled with the responsibility of growing into all that we can by discerning wisdom from the right places, from the right realms. Wisdom reestablishes right structures. Understanding helps for us to be able to effectively coordinate the resources that come from the structural processes of our minds. And then by that we can effectively disseminate the right kind of knowledge that will help us to build external systems and structures. We must come to this place where we realize that our destiny is in our hands. We cannot afford to continually lean on that which has been imposed upon us by our faulty cultural orientations, faulty educational systems. I mean, the kind of leaders that come out of our educational systems are what we see today. And so, if we have to change, it has to therefore be something beyond that which our educational system captures. And that is called wisdom. I was in a company of a friend, and a young man who read sociology was called and interviewed less than a year ago or about that. And while he was interviewed for the job, he could not define the course which he read for 4 years in the university. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it rather appalling that a young man could dress up with a good shirt and a good tie but couldn't define that which he claims he read. Now, these are all the kinds of people we have everywhere. A culture of laxity, a mentality of slavery, which has not allowed us to be able to become ourselves. We must watch out, for the days are drawing near when we will not be able to enter into the fullness of that which has been released by wisdom for our dispensation, except we are determined to take responsibility through quality decisions founded on righteous desires. This is the only way that we can attain to the fullness of our potential in this decade of difference and distinction. We must determine and decide to make the right decisions, not minding the consequences. We must be determined to take the right kind of decisions. We must be determined to swim against the tide of global currents towards true north. We must be determined to glide beyond the horizon of conventionality. We must be determined to pioneer new realms. Yes, it costs a lot. A wise man once said, to every star there is a scar. It costs a whole lot to be able to become influential in a society which is programmed toward self-destruction, individually and corporately, except for a select few. It costs a lot. Well, only cowards flinch in seasons of change. Only cowards go against convictions and principles of light in seasons when they are supposed to discern wisdom for navigating towards, corporate and individual advantage. We must come to that point where we realize that all of the things that are happening are for our advantage. We must be able to read the signs. It's a season of constructive innovations. It's a season for formulation of nurturing and formulation of abstract structures within, and a season for downloading wisdom for implementation in order to bet those internal abstract structures into natural realities. We must come to this point where we understand that this is about a do or die affair. We must get it right. Influence is being redefined right now. It must be founded on truth, no more on falsehood. We can no longer live a facade of who we truly are. The days are here when leaders must emerge, rise up and speak truth in reality, not founded on the need to benefit self only, but for the purpose of the corporate good. When we rise individually and we are not generational conscious, or we are not intentional about nurturing our peers, what happens is that the people we refuse to build eventually destroy the structures that we built. Except we decide to grow as a corporate entity, consciously engaging the principle of synergy as a social curriculum in our various endeavors, with an understanding that life has to do with interrelationships. The principle of ecosystem establishes this truth. Except we come to this understanding and begin to consciously implement and be willing to give up all that is mundane for everything which we deem significant within the context of true north and true knowledge, we will not be able to maximize our potentials. It's a battle for influence. It's a battle for reality. It's a battle for true reality by light. Therefore, we must make up our minds to birth that which will bring us to the place of fulfillment and establishment, so that our generation and the generations yet unborn might be able to get at least a little bit of ventilation in the midst of a seemingly self-destructive system. I don't believe anything is impossible. Leaders are always optimistic to the very end, except where those who follow refuse to follow. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. Therefore, I encourage everyone who is watching this broadcast. It doesn't matter what you see. If you're a genuine leader, inspired by light, keep doing what you're doing. Stay self-motivated, self-propelled, stay inspired. Take the right decisions. Understand the cost of every decision. And for whatever decision you take as a result of your convictions, be determined to go through every phase of it so that you can be established. And once you are established, then you will see the beauty of leadership, which is founded on truth, light, and righteousness. Thank you very much for today's broadcast, Leadership Today. I hope you are inspired. Please stay tuned. We are back and we'll keep you updated weekly with our broadcast in order to help us interpret the times, determine the next route of navigation, and then learn the wisdom required to be effective in our navigational processes. Thank you very much. Until next week, stay inspired.